your girl TT from the D, and we are down with day number 6 of the 30-day marriage challenge. I am super excited that you are taking this journey with us. We want to shout out every morning all of the listeners that we know about according to our graphic location, starting with the United States, Bahrain, Philippines, Canada, Ireland, Puerto Rico, Italy, India, United Kingdom, Romania, Saudi Arabia, Netherlands, Australia, Russia, Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, Mexico, Egypt, Brazil, Guam, Ukraine, Bangladesh, and Czech Republic. We are super excited. We are very aware that there are several other podcast platforms you could have logged on to, but you chose and you are choosing to take this 30-day marriage challenge with us each and every morning. So we are super excited. We are at day 6, and today we're going to be talking about stages of growth in marriage. And so with that being said, first of all, when you get married, that you just have no idea what's in store. We hear the stories. We model sometimes. Sometimes we may get the impression from seeing other married couples, the stages they go through. You might hear different types of stages, but we want to share a few different stages. There's a lot of resources out here. There's a lot of data out there, and today we're just going to talk about 4 stages. We'll give you a scripture to read at your leisure. And today's scripture is 1 Corinthians 13, 7 through 8. And it reads as followed. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And I think that we could tuck that into our back pocket. We could put that inside our heart pocket. We could put it in our love treasure box. It's important that we understand certain stages and we go through them accordingly. Whatever that might look like for you. Every marriage is different. We talked about that. This is day 6, but if you've missed any of the topics, I would encourage you to go back from day 1, which would be November 1st. And as I said, today is November 6th. It's Sunday, November 6th. So you could be listening to this show before you get ready for church, virtually or in the brick and mortar, outside, depending where you are in the world. Church could be outside. Here in Michigan, it's a little nippy and chilly this morning. So if you are outside at your church of choice and you guys are doing an outdoor service, I just encourage you to bundle up. It's a little brisk. If you're from Michigan, you know how we do. And so we also want to give a shout out to Evra Cassimy and Danielle Cassimy and their family as they travel. They are a beautiful married couple as they get ready to travel from Detroit to their new hometown of Chicago. We want to wish them a safe travel and journey and a beautiful start to a new chapter of growth of life in their marriage as well as their family. So, I would have to say I got some data. Social scientists have observed that marriage typically moves through a series of at least 4 stages. Each stage, according to the data, presents unique learning opportunities and blessings along with your everyday challenges and obstacles. We also know in marriage we're going to come against challenges. We're going to face some obstacles, but it's what you do in the midst of those challenges and at the start of those obstacles which will determine how your outcome will be. Sorry, excuse me, I have a little sniffles this morning. Progression through these stages is like going through a cycle though, and this means that we're going to navigate and move through each stage of life together in our marriages based off on how you handle your everyday living, your mentality, your mindset, okay? And it's going to take growth together as one. As Swifty had said the other day, when you get married, you take out the I's for us, right? So it's together. It's in unison. And we're always growing. Every single day we're growing. You're learning something new. You have to be open-minded to be able to know we're entering this stage together, but we're also entering it individually and collectively. So stage 1, romance, passion, expansion, and promise. In the beginning of a relationship, when you become husband and wife, often communicates the effortless at length. We are ready for the challenge. It's you and me. It's us against the world. And that seems to be the way we start to build. We hope to build. We start out wanting to please one another, encourage one another, right? We learn about the us's, the we. We tend to try to understand that the you, the I, have to be changed out. For us, we. There's always going to be your individualness, yes, but there has to start to be the togetherness if you want a successful marriage. And we're going to be individuals to the day we die. However, together is what we're focused on building. You got your own individuality, of course. You are the same woman you was when you got married. You are the same man you was when you got married, and you are. You're still that same lady. You're still that same man. You're just more seasoned and you're growing as one. And now let me tell you, life is like a rubber band. It can expand and it will expand. It's all about how you tend to expand together. And at this stage, a lot of couples learn to pray together, pray for one another. Husbands, pray for your wives. And wives, pray for your husbands. But together, pray for your union. Okay? It's important that you learn that in the first stage, because that part is going to still be important in the second stage, third stage, fourth stage, and through eternity of your marriage. Okay. Stage 2, settling down and realizing that you're settling down. I know you're probably like, girl, we already knew that when we took a oath, a vow that we are settling down and we in the reality of it. Some people get married. Some people get married and they still act like they by themselves. Like, well, she know what it is. He know what it is. What does that mean? You have to realize you have a spouse now. You have a husband or you have a wife. And things change. Because now you are no longer in a relationship as boyfriend, girlfriend. Oh, that's my significant other. This is your wife now. This is your husband now. And it's important that we respect that and we understand that. And I know you might be saying, duh, TT, we know that. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised that some couples struggle with that. I really don't know why, but some couples struggle with settling down. And I don't know if it's the old player spirit. I don't know. But some couples, for real, struggle with settling down. And understanding that we a couple now. And we have to learn to deepen that communication. We have to learn to work together. Express our desires, our wants, our needs. We're not psychic. Okay, fellas? Your wives are not psychic. ladies, your husbands are not psychic. So we have to continue, no matter what stage you're in, to express your desires, your wants, your needs. Going into a marriage, I would think that you have some type of idea or a true understanding about what your spouse wants, what they need, what they desire. Expectations, right? And I say expectations because I know some people who've gotten married and they talked one way, but behaved another way. Went in saying, this is what we want. Yeah, this is what we want. And then in the middle of it, it's kind of like, no, that's what she wants. No, that's what he wants. It's not what we want. And it's kind of like, uh-oh, wait a minute. And then you'll hear people say things like, ooh, it's trouble in paradise. I think that was a line in Why Did I Get Married? One of my favorite movies by Tyler Perry. When Gavin was talking with his wife, Patty. And then, I don't know who it was, but somebody was like, oh, it sounds like trouble in paradise. And it's like, no, it wasn't trouble in paradise. It's just they were really actually expressing themselves, right? And we have to learn to do that no matter what stage. Again, no matter what stage. Expressing what you need, want, and desire is going to be an everyday, I'm not going to say battle, but an everyday routine. Because life is busy. If you're working, you're in school, you're raising a child or a family, if you are an entrepreneur, life is busy. And we're growing. We're constantly growing. But you got to remember, while we're growing as a team, your wife, your husband is growing individually. So their desires, their wants, their needs, they're going to change, rightfully so. You would hope that they change and grow deeper. So that's going to require you as a wife, you as a husband, to keep up with the growth of your spouse. So you can continue to develop those skills that's going to help you know as you are settling down into this stage of life of knowing and growing and showing, but you're also implementing doing. You might find it hard to believe, but some couples may find it hard to express what they need, want, and desire for whatever their issues are. But I'm here to remind you and share this. You have to work on that. It could truly be a simple conversation you have with your significant other, but it's one worth having if you want a successful marriage, because we're growing every day. Together, yes. Individually, yes. But you got to focus, and you have to see. You can see with your own eyes what your husband or wife may need, what they've spoken. You hear what they've said they want, right? And you feel it. It's your job. It's your responsibility as a mate, as a spouse, as a husband, as a wife in that union, to pay attention to what you see, what you feel, what you hear from your significant other, and for yourself. Let me be clear. You know what you want. You know what you need. You know what you desire. Sometimes you have to get what you need, do what you want, and have what you desire by your own admission and getting and doing for yourself. Let me be clear. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying that the wants, needs, and desires have to be provided by your spouse. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you growing and learning that. I'm also reminding you as an individual, you're responsible for your own happiness. Just because you're married doesn't mean that you don't have to put any effort in to gain happiness, to get happiness, to provide happiness. However, your significant other, your husband, your wife, is not responsible for your happiness. I can't stand when I hear people say, Well, I'm not happy. He doesn't make me happy. I'm not happy. She doesn't make me happy. We're not happy. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing in this relationship to make sure that y'all happy, that you're happy? And have you told your wife? Have you told your husband? Have you expressed to your wife? Have you expressed to your husband? I'm not happy. Has your spouse asked you? With them seeing, with them feeling, with them knowing that you're not happy, they're concerned for your lack of happiness. Have you been asked if you're showing and you've said that I'm not happy? Have you been asked by your husband, by your wife, why aren't you happy? What can I do to add to what you need so that you can find happiness? This is good conversation. This is mature conversation. If you feel bothered or you feel like I ain't about to be doing all that, then you need to look within yourself, sir, ma'am. Why is it a problem for you to find out what you can do to help bring joy to your significant other, your wife, your husband? If that's a problem, if that's an issue for you, then you have a whole nother problem issue within yourself. And I think this will be a perfect time for you to seek out counseling, whether that's at your church if you belong to one, if that's within your organization, seeking outside services with a counseling service or a therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me implement that and remind you, there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist or a counselor or seeing your pastor or your priest, your rabbi. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, it's everything wrong when you go on and seeking counseling from your homegirl, from your homeboy, especially when they're not licensed, when they're not ordained. Okay? There's a lot of issues with that. You can have your girlfriend talk, your fellas talk, but that's not the doctrine. Please don't let that be. You know what? I'm about to go home and talk to her about that. You know what? I'm about to go home and talk to him about that. You right, girl. You right, man. No, sir, ma'am, no. No, they're not. They gave you their opinion because guess what? It's healthy to have conversation with the opposite sex when it's your friend. And you got to know the difference between a friend and associates and a frenemy. And if you don't, I'm going to need you to Google that, figure that thing out, because some of y'all are rolling and riding out with people that ain't your friend. They're a frenemy hidden in the disguise of a friend, and they don't mean you no earthly good. And they don't mean your marriage no good. You better recognize and understand that. They hee and ha in your face and around your spouse. But behind your back, whether it's with their spouse or whether it's by themselves, because we have friends that are not married. Some are trying to tear down your marriage and you don't even know it. Trying to tear you down as an individual. Geeking you up to do something that ain't even healthy nor right in your marriage. Y'all better recognize and understand. Some are doing things that ain't healthy in their own marriages. And they want a friend. They want a friend of me that's going to roll with them. So they can have that. I know you ain't saying nothing trying to judge me. Because you on the same couch with me sitting right next to me. You did the same thing. Nah. You better recognize and understand. Friends don't encourage friends to do stupid stuff. I'm working on my cousin. Woo! I almost said something else, y'all. But friends don't encourage friends to do things that's not right. Friends actually discourage that. Even if they're in a salty place in their own marriage or their own relationship. If you going through some stuff with your wife, you going through some stuff with your husband, and your friend come to you and they sharing something with you, and you in a bitter season, you be better off to say, you know what, I'm not in a good place right now. We ain't in a good spot right now. We working through some things. I'm not the best one suit to give you an opinion. Because I'm going to only give you this opinion based off of how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking. And you may not be in your right mind, your right frame of heart to be giving someone some advice. And we got to be honest with that. And you are not blind. You are not deaf. You are not ignorant, sir, ma'am, husband, wife. You know when your friends or friend is going through something in their union and you're going through something in yours, please don't play like dominoes and put your pieces on the table too. This is not the time for that. Sometimes we got to hold it. Because if your friend going through something, that married couple going through something, sometimes married couples will call other married couples and say, listen, we struggling with something right now. And we need some advice. And you could remind them, listen, unless you are a licensed therapist, counselor, or minister ordained or something, like for me, I'm not licensed, I'm ordained as a marriage ministry leader. So I love to give advice, but I'm never going to give no advice that's going to be, you're not going to always be happy with my advice. If you're doing something stupid and it's just don't make no sense and you mad, I'm not about to get on your team just because you mad. I'm going to tell you if I think you right or you're wrong. If I think now come on, does that make sense? You know you wrong. You ain't going to want to hear that because you're looking for that, yeah, girl, yeah, man. No, I'm going to always think of this in a positive intent. I want to always assume a positive intent about someone's marriage. Now, let me be clear. If you in a marriage and your spouse is gaslighting you, and I see that, and y'all recognize that, and you know it, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I don't think they gaslighting you. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, sounds like a duck, feels like a duck, if you lucky enough to touch one, it is. If it barks like a dog, walk like a dog, sits like a dog, rolls over like a dog, it's a dog. Call it what it is. Okay? I'm not here to blow smoke up nobody's butt. And if you ask me, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you my opinion. Because everybody has one. But always know, I'm not going to give you any advice or my opinion on anything that's going to rip down and tear down your marriage. Now, if you in an abusive marriage, I'm just saying this. I'm just going here. If you in an unhealthy marriage, I'm going to recommend that you get some counseling. If you're an abusive one, I'm going to recommend that you exit stage left or right. Whichever is safer. I'm not going to encourage nobody. Let me be clear. So any of your friends I got, if y'all going through that and y'all been hiding it and y'all can't help yourselves, don't come around me. Because I am not going to encourage her or him. Because let's be clear. There's abuse in all forms. It ain't just the husbands abusing wives. It's wives abusing husbands. And let's also be clear. It's not always physical. You got emotional, mental, spiritual abuse. You better recognize and understand there's levels to that. And I'm never encouraging anyone to stay anywhere that they're being mistreated. I grew up in a very dysfunctional household growing up. My parents weren't married. My mother and my stepfather at the time were not married. But they did all the things that married couples do, according to the way I look at life in my adult life now. But it was filled with physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I can't say spiritual abuse because my mother was a praying mother and my mother took us to church. And even when she didn't go to church, she sent us to church. My father never went to church with us. Never. Okay. Now, did my father go to church on his own? Maybe. I don't know. But my father never went to church with me and my mother and my sister or us as a family. My stepfather, prior to my mother getting married now, my stepfather, my siblings, I have 2 siblings that share a father outside of my sister and I sharing the father. Their father never went to church with us. Even when my mother took us to church or went to church or sent us to church. My stepfather never went to church with us. Did he ever go to church? Not in my presence. I don't know. Did he go outside? I don't know. He might have. I don't know. He could have. But never with us. In my house, my husband and I, we go to church together. Sometimes my husband may go and I may not go. Sometimes I might go and my husband may not go. Okay? Sometimes... we don't have it where our son goes to church without us. But if that was an opportunity, if there was friends saying, hey, Cody can go to church with us, fine. If we weren't going, right? That's fine. But I go to church, my husband goes to church, our son goes. Sometimes, as I said, if my husband go and I don't, our son will go with my husband. Sometimes if I go and my husband don't, my son will come with me. It just depends. But that is a foundation, right? That's where we get our strength from. And even when we attend church virtually, like today may be a virtual day of church. Thank God for church that's online, streaming live. When you can't get out, when you can't get out, and whether you're not feeling well or you're tired, you still getting that word. I'm not here to judge nobody, ever. Now, I'm judgmental. Because y'all know me. Some of y'all know me. I'm very judgmental. However, I'm not here to judge you. Because guess what? For those that are believers, I don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. I ain't keeping records of your wrongs and rights. I have a hard time keeping record of my own wrongs and rights, okay? And I ask God to forgive me all the time when I make a mistake, when I make a bad choice or a decision. Why? Because I'm not perfect. I don't know nobody perfect on this earth. Not one single man, woman, boy, or girl. Okay? Pastor, bishop, priest, first lady. Ain't nobody perfect. You put your pants on the same way everybody else in the world does. One leg at a time. Sometimes you might mistake and put both legs to one hole. It gotta depend on the shape of your pants. But everybody puts one leg at a time. And you pull them up the same way. They start from the bottom and they go up to your waist. Around your waist, you button them, zip them, slide them up, depending on the material. We all do that the same way. So, again, I'm never gonna encourage you to do something that's not right. But I'm going to always encourage you to do what's right. However, if you are an abuser, and I don't know why I'm honing in on this. Somebody must need to hear this morning. If you are an abuser, let me correct that, abuser. If you are an abuser and you are abusing your spouse and your spouse happens to let me know, or I happen to see it because I ain't blind, I'm going to encourage your spouse for y'all to get counseling, some help to separate themselves for their own safety. Because just like you know and I know, we never can tell what's going to make a person pop, man or a woman. You see it every day like I see it every day, or hear it. People in these abusive relationships not making it out safe. I'm tired of witnessing by seeing in social media, on the news, or hearing on the radio, someone took their wife's life, or someone took their husband's life, or it was a murder-suicide. Because whatever the issues were, there's always friends to those type of people. There's always relatives to those type of people. And I'm always going to wonder, did anybody know? Did anybody encourage them? Hell, I'll call the police on you. Let me find out you kicking somebody's ass over there. See, I'm working on my cousin, but it came out. You beating on your wife. You beating on your husband. Your child and called us, or somebody said, hey, so-and-so and them fighting. I'm calling 911 on your house. And if y'all both get arrested, I don't know what to tell you. Whoever the aggressor is, whatever. I'm going to call the police on you. Be clear. Let me understand. I know TT ain't called. Yes, TT did. Yes, I did. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. I can't tell you how many times I had to call 911 growing up as a child because my parents or my mother and stepfather was brawling. Not a slap. No, I ain't calling the police on the slap. A punch, a body slam, using objects to harm. Oh yeah, 911 should have been on speed dial in my house at a certain time of life, because I had to call them quite often. I had some good neighbors that I could run down to, and they would call the police, because that's what the police is there for. But I thank God that every situation turned out where my mother was able to leave out, often hurt, but my mother was able to leave out and alive today. And I believe a lot of those calls, certain calls, I can remember on a hand field, all fingers used, that if I hadn't called the police, my mother might not be here today. And that's me being 100% transparent. And I don't care who's offended by what I just said. I don't care. Whether you're a relative or a friend of either side, my mother or my stepfather, I don't care if you're offended. I'm thankful I called 911 because my mother's alive today. And if you know my story or any of my story, you already know what I could even be referencing, because I'm always being transparent. Somebody always needs to hear things like this, because this is reality we live in. I ain't the only adult that had to call 911 growing up on a dysfunctional household where their parents were fighting. Hell, you might need to call 911 as an adult, as a teenager. If you need to do that, do that. There's nothing wrong with it, because it's obviously needed. We always want the outcome to be positive. Sometimes somebody might get arrested. I ain't got nothing to do with that. You shouldn't be putting your hands on nobody. Now, you don't call 911 for mental abuse. You don't call 911 for emotional abuse. You do call 911 for physical abuse. Okay? You get yourself to a safe place. Okay? And some relationships are tough. I've had a counselor on, and I think when we do a session again, we'll elaborate on that. Sometimes it's not wise to call the police outside, but I'd let her tap in on that, because I thought to myself, I'm gonna call, and I am. However, it could pose a bigger problem if you in the area that the police take all day. I ain't gonna put nobody on blast, but there's certain areas 911 take all day. It ain't always because they understaffed, but they take all day to get to domestic violence run calls. Why? Because they got other things that's taking top priority. However, I hate to say that, you could be the deciding factor making that judgment call. We got to take this other run. And sometimes, unfortunately, people lose their lives. So I'm going to get up for that, because I don't want this to turn into that. We're talking about the stages of growth in marriage. But I had to hone in on that. I really believe somebody needs to hear this morning, or this evening, or tonight, or tomorrow if you're catching up. But ideally, couples learn to forgive one another. We learn to get through things. We're going to have some tough conversations. You're not going to always do what is appeasing to your spouse. Sometimes your husband going to do something to piss you off, wives. Sometimes your wives going to do something that's going to piss you off, husbands. But it's communicating. Hey, I wasn't appeased with that. That didn't make me happy. That kind of made me feel some kind of way. I'm upset. I'm disturbed by that. It's called communication. Perhaps your wife, perhaps your husband didn't know that you were going to get mad, that was going to upset them, that was a trigger. Because some of us come into relationships with trauma, and we think we've dealt with it. And our spouses might know about our trauma, and they know that we're a work in progress, right? I had my own trauma issues. My husband had his own trauma issues. We are aware of a lot of the trauma that we endured growing up. So we learn how to deal with things. We talk about things openly, honestly, right? There's no sense in lying and talking about things and lying. How is there healing in that? I'm going to not say this to her because I know how she gets. I'm going to not say this to him because I know how he gets. Well, let me be clear. That causes division. That causes problems. Again, sometimes you're going to say some things and deal with some things that ain't going to be appeasing. And what I'm not saying is deal with it. Well, this is what I'm doing. Just deal with it. Ha! That's disrespect. That's disrespect. If it's something you ain't got no choice in dealing with, I hope that you had an option to know about it before it manifested. Okay? Some things can be worked out. Some things cannot. Some things will be deal breakers. Hopefully those things have been put on the table and not tabled before you got married. But in marriage, sometimes marriages, things manifest. And you have a choice, husband. You have a choice, wife. Before you say, well, this is what it is. You got to talk to your husband, your wife. It's respect, especially when it involves something that's going to affect directly your spouse. Indirectly, hey, that's some tough conversation. But when you're talking about something that's going to affect your husband, your wife directly every day, majority of the time, You owe your wife, your husband, a conversation. And let's be clear. I hope that it don't get to the, well, I'm going to do this. I mean, you just going to have to learn to live with it. Because that might be the deciding factor that's going to have your wife or your husband filing for divorce. Depending on the toughness of it. And that's real talk. I'm not saying nothing that ain't reality. You will never catch me on this podcast show saying some things just so you can listen and, oh yeah, we're going to talk about some things that's tough sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. For those of you that's listening, you're not married and you're listening anyway. But we're going to talk about some things. I believe in living in our reality, functioning in our truth. And it ain't always going to be rosy. It's not. I didn't come here to blow smoke up anybody's behind. No, sir, ma'am. I want every marriage to be successful. My goodness. I want everybody's marriage to work out. I want you to grow old and in love. I want every marriage to be beautiful. I do. I love love. I was just getting teary-eyed when I chose the cartoon that I chose on Facebook. You can see it. You can't see it on Instagram because the width of it. So I had to make it one size. But if you go to my Facebook page, TTFromTheD Podcast, or my personal one, if you know me, you know, then you saw the 3 stages. And I got teary-eyed looking at that and just perusing. I looked at different for real couples out there, right? And seeing the young version of them, the middle-aged version, then the old version, the older season, the elderly, they're in their 80s and 90s. I want to one day be like that with my husband, if it be the Lord's will. I want to be that old couple with the silver gray hair, neatly combed in place. Okay, yeah, y'all, some of y'all like, what? Yeah, okay, whatever, it's a song, and my voice is kind of acting crazy because I got the sniffle, so I'm not going to try to, I don't want you to log off because you disturbed because I tried to sing. But that's a line to one of my favorite songs, right? But I want to be that, where we sitting next to each other old. And I hope that God allows us to be healthy enough where we can live in our own home in our elderly age, like my mother-in-law and father-in-law did. It was a beautiful thing. As I look up at this picture that hangs over our couch in our living room, it's a beautiful picture blessed to us by one of my sister-in-laws, Sue, of my mother-in-law and father-in-law in their early stages of their marriage, young, beautiful couple. But then I also remember them in their elderly stages, how my father-in-law took care of my mother-in-law as she got into a stage where she could no longer take care of herself. He tended to her, loved on her in every way possible. It was beautiful to see him taking care of her. And then when she left this life before him still getting around and doing for himself until his last days. Functioning, sharp as a whip. My father-in-law was sharp as a whip. I miss the conversations with both of them, because I had true relationships with both of them. Beautiful relationships. And they were both elderly. But it was talking to a woman and a man who had been married forever and having real good conversation. And it wasn't conversation. Sometimes you might conversate with your in-laws and it's always to paint this picture and what they need and want from you so that their child can be happy and all these things. Well, one thing I can say about my mother-in-law, honey, she told me things that was benefiting to me as a woman, as a wife, as a mother. Had nothing to do with trying to iron out and fashion me and help me grow to be appeasing for her son, her only son. With me being happy as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, would automatically make me suitable for her son. And she would always give me some good advice. Like, if you're not happy, if my son, An, is not doing his job, I want you to never stay in a marriage that's not healthy. I don't think that that's going to be our story, but don't you ever settle. And that's some tough conversation, I feel, from a mother to a daughter-in-law but it was from a woman to a woman. And I will always respect and love her for many reasons, but that's one of them. One of the reasons I love her and was very fond of her in the physical form. So I had to share that. I'm sorry. But, I love love. I had to say, I rounded up. I love love. I love marriages. And I want every marriage to be successful. I hope that every married couple grows until your elderly time, until death do you part. Right? And even death can't do you part. I did a show a couple years ago when I was doing Married Couples Pour as a podcast show. It was dedicated to just married couples, but I don't know what led me, but I went to Hobby Lobby that morning, and I had, at that time we lived in my pathway. There was a cemetery, a nice cemetery on its way. I would have to pass it to cross a major street to get to my house. And I always thought, like, they had this fountain and this bridge you could see from the street. That I always thought, it must be beautiful and peaceful in there, right? And so one day I was riding home from Hobby Lobby, and I decided I'm going to go in the cemetery, park my car, and walk around. I want to see what this bridge is like. And it was such a level of peace. Of course, it's in a cemetery, right? And as I was walking, I noticed there was a section. Now, I don't know if this is what this was, but this section had tombstones of husband and wives. And I walked through it. I was drawn to it. And I cried. Because I said, you know what? These are all husband and wives that have left this life. I'm going to get emotional, I'm sorry. They left this life and their family buried them together. I took it as not even death could separate them. And I thought that was beautiful. Not even death. We don't know where we go. For those that are believers, you can go to heaven or hell. Because there is an option. Let's be clear. Everybody ain't going to highway to heaven. Everybody not going to make it. That's why it's important to pray and be kind and loving and compassionate and empathetic and do the right thing in life so that you can guarantee yourself a ticket to heaven if you're a believer. Now, if you're not a believer of heaven and hell, this part of this segment is not for you. But for those of you that believe in heaven and hell, you want to do the right thing. We only imagine. We don't know. We have no sound doctrine. We have no living proof that we will be, as husband and wife, united when we leave this life. But it's what we do, ladies and gentlemen, while we're here. Love on your wife. Love on your husband. Love on your marriage. Pour into the years, the time that you have with your wife, with your husband. Because as you know, I'm sorry, especially when COVID manifested, there are so many marriages that were cut short because COVID took a wife, or COVID took a husband, and their spouse is left here. Thankfully, I attended the funeral to one of our married couples members. Shout out to Ginger. Virginia is a beautiful spirit. She was a beautiful woman. Whew. And her husband is still here, and we love on him, and we see him at church, and he still comes to church. You remember what I said earlier, that There was times I go to church, and times my husband might go to church, and times we go to church. And growing up, there was times my mother went to church and took us as kids, and sometimes sent us children, when my mother couldn't go. Well, Virginia's husband, he still goes to church, thank God. He still goes and gets that word, and he still takes their grandbaby. They used to always bring their grandbaby to church every Sunday. He still takes that tradition. And I always hug him when I see him. And I always smile at him. I sit behind him. If we're not in the same row as him, but I sit behind him. And I always find myself smiling and looking at him. And although there is his grandbaby in that chair next to him to his left, there would always be Virginia Ginger in the next chair, right? And I always can envision her sitting there. Even though in the physical she's not. I just envision her sitting there with her husband, with their grandbaby, as they always did when she was here. So we gotta love on each other, y'all. Love on each other, your husband or your wife or your marriage or your union. And love on other married couples. Love on people, period. Let me be clear. Love on people, period. But love on other married couples. If you are a social married couple, invite another married couple out for brunch or breakfast. Meet up with them, happy hour. If you guys like to go out for happy hour. Hell, my husband and I, next weekend, we're going to go out as a triple date with two of our married couple friends, the Beelans, and who else we're going out? Good Lord, who? Jesus, I forgot the other couple we're going out with. Lord bless it. The Vigils. I'm sorry. Yeah, Heather and Dave. So we got Jeff and Andrea, Heather and Dave, and me and Andre. We're going out on the triple date next week. And so that's going to be a lovely triple date married couples outing. So that's just we like to get with other married couples. We have a lot of married couple friends, and I love all of our married couple friends, right? And so we always have a good time. In 2023, we're hoping to, add some things as far as married couples go. I've been hitting around. There's some things TT from the D is working on for 2023 season 3. And we're coming to a soft close for season 2. And this has nothing to do with my typical podcast show. This is just a 30-day marriage challenge for the month of November. You'll catch a show in the morning time. Normally, Monday through Friday, you'll catch this between 6:30 and 7:45. It will always be by 8 o'clock. You'll get a show. Saturday and Sunday is flexible. This is the first weekend for the Married Couples Challenge, 30 days. So I told my husband, we talked about it yesterday, like he joined me yesterday. We had a long night last night. It was Ever Cassimi's album fundraiser party, listening party, going away party. As I said earlier, they are on their way to Chicago this morning to start their new chapter of life. Amazing. It was amazing. I served as the stage manager last night. Amazing. So, it was a tiring night, long night, beautiful night. And this morning, I was on the struggle bus, but I have to be obedient. I let my husband rest. I didn't wake him up. I let him rest. And, I came down so I can get this show, because this is what we're supposed to do. When God gives us a mission, we have to carry it out. And even when we don't feel like being obedient, we have to be obedient. I've seen the blessings when we choose to be obedient. We still bless when we're not, but not as much. I will say that. Okay, so let me move on. Stage 4. Okay, the last stage that I want to share is stage 4, discovery, reconciliation, and beginning again. Couples push through previous stages through life, period. There's going to be additional stages, but these were just the 4 stages we wanted to share. I had research and data. And you can go to foryourmarriage.org to get this information on your own. If you want to read it at your leisure, again, that's www.foryourmarriage.org to get this information. Some things are on there. Some things I went in that were straight from my heart. So you could tell the difference in the podcast. If not, you can go on and read and say, oh, well, TT must have been pouring into it. Okay. We learn to identify as we talk about our fears instead of acting them out. We need to learn to refuse to judge and place blame on our partners. If you are a person that judgmental, placing blame, always pointing the finger, then you need to work on that. Husband, you need to work on that. Wife, you need to work on that. Together, y'all need to work on that. It's not about creating a checklist of, well, you was wrong, because it's not going to be as even as to the ones that they were right. You know, just as much as you want to tell them they're wrong, do you spend that same energy telling them they're right? That's a rhetorical question, but that's one you should ask yourself if you are that person. I could think of a couple of couples that I know that are married, and they're married and it's not healthy marriages. It's not. And they openly show that it's not healthy. And I don't know if it's not like they're a reality show where you're showing it. You just are not healthy. But y'all okay with that. And I'm like, I don't understand how you function, but there's love there. I can't say that, but it's like, that couldn't be me. I can't be in a marriage like that, where it's dysfunctional, it's negative, abusive, spiritually, emotionally, sometimes physically. I can't even do none of that. I can't. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not doing none of that. I'm not gonna give it, and I'm not gonna take it. That is fact. My husband ain't gonna give it, and he ain't gonna take it. That is fact. We're not gonna do this thing if it's gotta be any of that. We're gonna have disagreements. Yeah, we're not gonna always see eye to eye, but guess what? We've learned to agree that we disagree and keep it moving. Thank God it ain't being nothing that has manifested where it's like, oh, this is a deal breaker. Thank God. And I'm going to pray that it never, ever comes to that. Right? Because what we ain't going to do, we've agreed, is settle in our marriage. We're not. We're not going to settle in our marriage. So I hope that we never, ever come against anything that will be a deal breaker for our marriage. Right? We know the adversary always out there. We know the hater is always listening. The hater could be listening right now, and I'm pretty sure there's people that's listening that will come with something in anybody's union. Because everybody don't want to see everybody happy, y'all. Let me be clear on that too. People could, oh, I love y'all marriage. I love y'all relationship. And they probably do. But everybody ain't for the team, baby. Everybody ain't for your marriage. I'm going to be clear. Even if they say they are, there are people that are rooting against your marriage. I'm going to be clear. Somebody wanted to tell you that, and they ain't want to say it because they ain't want to hurt you. I'm going to tell you that because that's fact. That's true. That's not fiction. That ain't on that website I gave you. That's TTism. That's fact. I've seen it. I've heard people talk about other people's marriages. And honey, I'm like looking at them like, and you a friend? Wow. Okay. Don't want you trying to speak into my union. Okay. Or try to unravel it and tear it apart. The only way I'm going to say something that might not be appeasing is if somebody laying hands. And I ain't talking about lovely hands. I'm talking about fist, open hand, slap type of hand. I ain't for it. I don't support domestic violence, whether you're married or not married. I am not for domestic violence in any shape or form. I'm against it 1,000% to the 10th power. Forget the second power, the 10th power. I'm passionate. You probably can hear it in my voice. I'm passionate. I'm against it. I'm against it. I'm going to always show up in anything I'm invited to that's supporting people that's against it, because I'm against it. Okay? But you need to be having these conversations. Okay? And remember, this ain't no win, lose, and draw. You gonna win in your marriage if you put the work in. That ain't a part of the stages I just said, but that's every day. Every stage, you step by step, one by one, brick by brick, build your marriage. Work on building your marriage. You're gonna be building your marriage every stage. That ain't on foryourmarriage.org. That's TTism. That's fact. You're always gonna be building your marriage. And if you're not working on building your marriage, you're failing your marriage. Every day you should be adding something to your marriage. I don't care if it's an article you read, if it's a scripture you read. I don't care. It better be something you added. It needs to be something that you could be adding. Please. It's imperative. You need to add something every single day to your marriage. I promise you, you need to add something every single